welcome. Welcome aboard. Now this sound. Okay, we have a very, very exciting lineup planned for today. First of all, I want to welcome you back. I want to thank you for joining. I want to thank you for participating. I want to offer you that besides sitting back and enjoying the content that we're delivering, feel free to participate on even a higher level. Ask a question. Answer a question. You can do it through typing. You can do it through thumbs up, thumbs down, if you have a reason to. Okay, I want to make sure that you're hearing, that you're understanding what we're saying, because today, as we go closer to Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to go a little bit off the regular formula of just applying everything, personal help, self-growth, change agent, positive change, formulas for change, and different concepts behind the scenes as far as relationships, Mashpia Makabel we spoke about. I want to take a step back. And being that we're entering now, during these days, B'ris Olam, and we will be mentioned right after Sikkis, starting to line again the Parshas of Bereshis. I'd like to explore two words that are very important to our existence and to our relationships. All of our relationships boil down to these two words. So backing up, if we were to name the Parshas HaTorah, which we currently name them based on normally the first word or the first few words of the Parsha, which then also gives us sort of the content, and by now we already know, since we've done it so many times, we know more or less what each name talks about. What I'd like to explore is, what would we call the Parsha, the first Parsha in the Torah, the one that we refer to currently as Bereshis, which obviously talks about Maaseh Bereshis. If we were to name the Parsha based purely on its content, on its themed content, and you ask yourself, what are one of the most common themes in that Parsha? We may call it a different name. Now before I do that, I'm just going to adjust this over here, even though Chaim will do so quickly for me in a second. Okay? I'm also going to say, and I'd like to thank all of you who have participated until now and who continue to follow and participate. And I invite you to join us, whether it's in a mastermind, if you don't belong to one yet, and maybe even to set up a one-on-one session so we can discuss some of these ideas and concepts on a personal level for you, whenever you're ready. So here goes. If we had to, or if we chose to, revisit the name of the Parsha of Bereshis, and by using one of the most common themes in the Parsha, so I would make the following suggestion. So let's explore as follows. On the first day of creation, after the Eibishter creates the world, as the beginning of creation begins and unfolds, the Torah says that the Eibishter saw that it was good. Ki tov. And we know that every day it says tov except for Monday. Monday there's no tov, which there are various reasons. We're going to explore one of them. And then on Tuesday we have twice tov. And then tov keeps on happening. At the end of all of this, the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Pusik says, now we're already on Tov plus, right? Not diet, Tov plus. Then we have, at some point, so now we have Loi Tov. So we have Tov Ma'od, and we have Loi Tov. And then we have a tree. What's the name of the tree that the Torah tells us that the Rebbeinu Shalom told Udom Edition not to eat from? What's the name of the tree? Go ahead, type it in for me so I can see that you're with me. Right? So most people say that Eitz Hadas, but that's not the name of the tree. The name of the tree is Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. This is not just the tree of knowledge. This is the tree of knowledge to be able to differentiate between Tov and Ra. Okay? Now we all of a sudden have a new word. Till now we had Tov. Yalikim ki Tov. Right? Till now it was, then we have Loi Tov, now all of a sudden we have Ra. So here's the thing with Ra. We're going to come back to Bereshis in a moment. But if we fast forward from Bereshis, just a few parshas, there's going to be a pusik that's going to teach us the following. Ki yaitzer laiv ha'udam ra mini irav. Now till today we obviously translated Tov as good and Ra as bad. Yet what does that mean? At the end of the day, what is good, what is bad? And we obviously all have our own answers to those questions of what is good and what is bad. I would like to, with your permission, boil it down to a simple, although complex, single term that we can work with moving forward. And there are so many ways to approach this. I'm going to try to approach this in the most holistic manner that I can think of, which is non-linear. Okay, so I'm going to be here and there and come back. This is not a linear thought process. Because our minds don't usually think linear anyway. So this should be able to feed your mind's needs. On the one hand, if we want, we could take a look at the first day, and the second day, and the third day, and see what was created on those days. And we will realize that on the days that it says Tov, that which was created were things that provide something, nourishment, protection, light, water, to the universe. And on day 2, what was created? So there's a diet that says that on day 2 Gehenna was created, and that's why it doesn't say Tov, which just strengthens our thought process. But Ikiyah Shamayim was created on day 2. So on every other day there was something created that added something to the ecosystem. The Ikiyah Shamayim doesn't really give anything. That's our first indicator. So on all the days when it says Tov, something is being given, something is being forwarded. On the days that it doesn't say Tov, it's the Ikiyah Shamayim. So here's the thing. Can it be that in the context of this conversation, of this discussion, that we can make a few assumptions that till now maybe we didn't make? See, because I always had a difficulty with this Tov V'Ra in a totally different context, which I'd like to visit right now with you. And that is, we're taught that each one of us is born with a Yetzer Hara. And at our Bas Mitzvah, we get a Yetzer Tov. And yet, if you look around, as I have, I see that kids, when they're small, they do everything right, almost. I mean, except for getting dirty and running around and being kids. Right? But you have a child, and he's davening, and he goes to school, and he listens to the teacher, the Mora, and the parents, and he's so vile in most cases. Right? And then when the Bar Mitzvah comes, it's downhill from there. All of a sudden, struggling, getting up, going to the yeshiva, learning, davening, doing, paying attention. Also needs a mechitza for not, hopefully not. But all of a sudden, so what do you mean that the Yetzer Hara was here till now, and he was such a violent kid, and now the Yetzer Tov coming? So let's explore for a second. Bad kids? There are no bad kids. I don't know any bad. You know any bad kids? I don't know any bad. Chaim, you know any bad kids? I don't know any bad kids. So what's Pshat? Which I believe that by following through on this thought process, which we're launching on right now, it's going to become so much simpler to understand this and many other things, especially as we grow up and as we go into relationships. There are no bad kids because there are no good kids. So then what does Yitzhak Udam Ram and Edav mean, and what does Yitzhak Hara mean? So let's explore the following for just a moment. Okay? So I can show you that we really already knew the answer to these questions. Everything I'm about to say, you already know the answer to before I say it, and I'm going to prove it to you. Those of you who are women or married to women, or have a mother or had a mother, have daughters or sisters, they might know this better than you, but if you went to school, you might know this as well. And the question is this. Before I get to the women, though, let me make a suggestion. I don't know if any of you know this, but if I was to make a children's book, and I have a storyline, and I even have the illustrations, everything's there, everything's in place. And all I need is someone to choose the colors for the different illustrations. And in my story, don't laugh, but in my story, I have maluchim, I have angels. Among the angels in my story, the main characters in my story are actually a good angel and a bad angel. Ask yourself, if you were to accept the challenge to choose the colors for the illustrations in my children's book, what color would you choose for the good angel? I'm going to show you some magic right now, some mind reading, right? You can answer, you can type in the answer if you like. But I'll bet you that the good angel is white. Right? And there's a bad angel. And although some people will choose red for the bad angel, confusing him with the devil, which we're not talking about, but what color would the bad angel be? Exactly. Black. Why? Why is the good angel white and the bad angel black? And don't talk to me about Black Lives Matter. This is not a racial conversation. This is just to show us that we know the answer to these questions. We just have to pause and ask ourselves. Back to the ladies. Okay? So the question really is, how come everybody, I have asked this question of adults and children, men and women, Yidden and non-Yidden, Frim and Frei, and everything in between. And I always get the same answers. The good angel is white, and the bad angel is black. With tiny nuances here and there, but that's mostly the answer that I get from everybody. What makes the good one white and what makes the bad one black? So that's where the ladies come in. Okay? If a woman has, and again, us men, we're sort of black and white where we come from, but you can be colorful. That's okay. But the ladies are usually into this. If a woman has the same type of clothing, made out of the same material, and it's in the winter, and she has to choose between the dark version of that clothing or the light version, the black version or the white version. In the winter, which one is she going to choose? Go ahead, ladies, you know the answer to this one. Go tell it to your men. In the winter, we're going to choose the black one. In the summer, we're going to choose, ladies, go ahead, tell me. That's right. In the summer, you're going to choose the light or white one. Why? And it has nothing to do with style. It has to do with color and how light works. You see, the reason why a woman would wear the light clothing in the summer is because the white or the light colors reflect out all of the sunlight. So therefore they stay cooler. In the winter they wear the darker colors because the dark color or the black attracts all of the light and it doesn't reflect anything out. Can it be that the reason that we would choose white for the good angel and black for the bad angel is because intrinsically, deep in our minds, and in our hearts and in our souls, we know that evil, ra, bad, is whatever takes in everything and doesn't give anything back. While toiv, good, is giving. And white reflects back all the whole spectrum of light right back out. And the black just takes it in. And that's what we call it, a black hole, something that sucks in everything and doesn't give anything out. Following through on this, we can make an assumption. And we can translate now Toiv as giving and Ra as taking. So on the days that the Eibush created something that gives, as we mentioned earlier, on those days, Vayaki Toiv, because it was giving. The Eitz Hadas, Toiv Ra, taught mankind the difference between giving and taking, between good and bad. And now as we fast forward to the Pusik that discusses marriage, which is a central part of what we're talking about here. When does it work, when doesn't it work? Very simple. Vayar, I think, Hashem Elikim or Elikim, Ki loy toiv hayosu udum levadoi, till now we translated that as, it's not gishmak to be single. You don't have who should cook for you, you don't have who should do your laundry, you clean up, etc., and everything else that we want to get, right? When in reality it's possible that the Pusik is telling us very simply that loy toiv, you can't be a giver, hayosu udum levadoi, if you're alone. And without going into Gans and the Titus, but if you look in Rashi over there, Rashi says, very openly, brings out of all the Medrashim possible to bring about Loi Toiv, Rashi brings a allusion over there, a Medrash that says, Shelo Yoimri Ma Zeh Yuchid L'Malu, that the Eibush is alone, Avzi Yuchid L'Matu. Or some such allusion. Right? So out of all the Medrashim, what's up is this? Because ask yourselves, what's the only thing that a Kol Yuchad cannot do alone? And that's give, because there's no one to give to. So the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world in order to give to us, and the Rebbeinu Shalom created marriage in order for us to give to them. Whether the them is our spouse, whether the them is our children, our grandchildren, and eventually our friends and neighbors, and when we speak about, which we have, Roots in the Kabbalah on the highest level, the level of giving is by receiving, which we're going to revisit as we move forward. But for now, let's understand this, that even as kids we understood this. Even as little children, when we wanted to get something from the adults, did we just ask based on the merit of our request? Or did we wait until the adult was in a good mood? And did we know that, no, don't ask when they're in a bad mood. No, don't ask Tati now, he's in a bad mood. If what I'm asking for is based on its merit, then who cares what mood the other person is in? Yet we know as children already that a good mood is a mood of giving, and a bad mood is a mood of taking or not giving. And that may be what the Pusik is telling us. It's not that the kid is bad. It's not that we're born bad. It's that we're born takers. That's our initial arrival into this body, into this life, into this universe, is as takers. We all want to become givers, which I'm not sure it's possible because the Torah doesn't say that it's toiv when we get married. It seems that the Torah is suggesting that the highest level that we can achieve by getting married is that we're not going to be loy toiv anymore. I'm not sure that we have the ability or the capacity to be toiv. Ad kedei kach that the Medrash says on toiv ma'oid, ve'alik muskal she'usu v'inai toiv ma'oid, toiv ze yatsa toiv, ma'oid ze yatsa hara. Or malach hamuvas, depending on different disciples, different Medrash. That ma'oid, that little extra, that sometimes comes from the Yetzer Hara. Toiv is good. Be toiv. Zamach ishka toiv ma'oid. Although Mitzad Sheni, I heard once from Rav Hutni, he said that the Yetzer Hara helps us more than the Yetzer Toiv, because the Yetzer Hara is only toiv. The Yetzer Toiv only gets us to toiv. The Yetzer Hara gets us to toiv ma'oid. So depending on how you want to look at that. But for our concepts that we're exploring right now, which is what makes me good, what makes me bad. So let's review the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. Let's just translate the words in English. Yetzer Tov, based on what we've said, is the urge to give. And Yetzer Hara is the urge to take. Imam Bruchas Dov Hayim Aleph says, Lo'olam Yargez Udam Yetzer Tov al Yetzer Hara. Right? You got to get that Yetzer Tov angry at the Yetzer Hara. What do you mean you want to be a taker, take your whole life? Now here's the thing. Anytime an adult is experiencing any type of relationship pain, isn't it possible that it's because they're being a taker instead of being a giver? Yet here's the thing. First of all, if there's any questions about this, I'd love to hear them. And by the way, thank you for that, 100%. So up until now, all we spoke about was giving and taking. We've established that Tov is giving and Ra is taking. Right? So now let's explore, though, there's something else. There's another one. Even though we call it give and take, right? It's the give and take. And yet, here's the thing. There's another way. But we have to explore it for a moment on the board. All right, so we have give and we have take. All right? Now here's the thing. When someone gives you something, I say, here, take this. I'm giving this to you. Usually what you do is you lean in to get it. Is that true? Right? If I'm truly giving you something and it's something that you want and you feel that I'm actually truly giving it to you, you will lean in to get it. Right? So that's when someone gives you something. When someone comes to take something away from you, there are three ways that we respond. We respond either by what we know, these are the three F's. Fight. Right? You come to try to take something away from me, I'm going to fight you off. Make sure you don't take it away from me. Although I'm probably not that guy. Flight. Right? I could run away so that you shouldn't be able to catch me and take it away from me. Or freeze. Which is done when it's done instinctively, or otherwise known as surrender, if it's done consciously. Or sometimes subconsciously. Okay, so free surrender. See, this is just to keep the three F's. But basically it's fight, flight, or surrender. Right? Fight, flight, or freeze. If you just want to have just something to compare it to, by the Milchumah, by the Lager, when the Yamach Shemois showed up, so the Eden, either some of them fought, not too many, but some of them became partisans and they fought. Many of them ran, mostly in the wrong direction, unfortunately. And the rest of us, especially those of us who didn't make it, and even some of us who did, surrendered. We just froze and we didn't know what to do next, or we just surrendered to what's happening for whatever reason, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes not good reasons. I'm not judging. These are just how we deal with when someone wants to take something away from us. Yet here's the thing. Have you ever had a situation where you wanted to give something to someone, and instead of moving in to get it from you, they responded, or even worse, reacted with fight, flight, or surrender? And this is very often with spouses, this can be with partners, this can be with teenagers, right? There are many different places where this might rear its ugly head. So I'm trying to give you something, and you're acting as if I'm taking something from you. Where does that come from? So I would like to suggest that comes from the following, and you can write this down. When someone wants to give something to someone that the other person doesn't want, they experience the giving as an act of aggression. They experience the giving as taking something away from you. We refer to that as a patch. Right? The father says, oh, yeah, I have to give this to you because this is what you need, and the kid is in pain and crying. Right? That's a patch. A patch is, I'm giving you something that you don't want. Guess what? It can be anything. It can be clothing. It could be behavior. It could be the way I treat you. It could be anything in the world. If I'm giving something to someone and they don't want what I'm giving, they will experience that potentially as an act of aggression. So how do we stay away from this? How do I overcome that I have all these people, I'm trying to give them things to them, and instead of showing appreciation, instead of appreciating what I'm giving them, they're responding with fight, flight, or surrender. Fight, flight, or freeze. And that confuses me. And I get upset at them, like, why don't you want the thing I'm giving you? And the answer is very simple. There needs to be a process in the relationship between the giver and the taker. Now, taker is the wrong word, obviously. So there needs to be a third way. And I'd like to suggest that the third way is receive. Okay? So now we have a giver, a taker, and a receiver. Okay? So here's the thing. The taker, you can't live with a taker. Because a taker just takes. Imagine, you leave stuff in your house and you leave the house and you come back and you're living with a taker and you never know what they're going to take next. They're just going to walk out with stuff and they're just going to take whatever they want and they just got what you want and they're just taking it and they're gone. Goodbye. Right? It's not possible. Even if you love them, even if you want to give them all the things that they're taking. But we cannot afford to live with people who just take. It's not possible. So we need a process. Okay? If you want, you can take a picture of this, a screenshot of it. I'm about to erase it, not because I'm erasing it because it's no good, but because I'm erasing it because I need to move on. Okay, I might write some of it again. And I would like to suggest the following. In order for the giver to know what it is that the receiver wants or needs, we have a process called ask. Now, I know that we've covered some of this in previous sessions, but this is really where it fits in so beautifully. There's something called ask. If I wait until you ask, is one way for me to know as a giver, as a sharer, as a mashpia, what you want and what you don't. Because as long as I don't know, because you don't ask me for what you want, I may end up giving you things that you don't want, and you're going to experience that as an act of aggression, and that's not what I want. So, fan du jetzt? Okay? So, here's the thing. Takers take without asking. And we can't live with that. We can't deal with that. Takers refuse to have to earn that which they get. Take. They're just on the take. So they don't have to ask for it, they don't have to earn it. They just want to get it without asking for it and without earning it. That's what we call people who accept or receive certain types of, whether it's government help or other types of handouts, we call them being on the take. Because even if they did ask for it, but we know that they didn't earn it, whether or not they're willing to. Okay? And takers do not appreciate what they get. And appreciate doesn't mean show appreciation yet, it just means they don't even appreciate what they got. Because they didn't ask for it, they didn't work for it, they didn't earn it, and therefore they don't appreciate it. So the difference between a taker and a receiver is going to be that the taker wants to take without asking, accepts things without earning them, and doesn't appreciate what they get, while a receiver is always willing to ask, earn, and appreciate. Now here's the thing. There are no bad kids. But kids are takers. When we say bad kid, by the way, we don't mean bad, we mean obedient. The current school system, if I have your attention for just a moment, I'll share this with you. In my opinion, the current school system was designed during a time of revolution. It was designed at a time when the world needed obedient factory workers and obedient soldiers. And that's how they designed it. You have to pick up your hand to ask a question, you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom, you have to follow the rules, sit and stand in a specific way exactly to test your obedience, to inoculate you with obedience. So therefore when we say a bad child, we don't really mean a bad child, we just mean a child who's not obedient, which is okay. At the same time, though, when the Torah says Ramini Irav, it just means that he's a taker. Now that taker we want to turn into a giver. Ask anybody in the world. If you had a choice between being a taker or a giver, what would you rather be? Go ahead, type it in. That's right. Everyone wants to be a giver. If I ask you what you are you a taker or a giver? Most people initially, at least until this, would say, yeah, I'm a big giver. Oh, I'm not a taker, and I don't want to be a taker. Yet here's an interesting question. If you're going to get married to someone, do you want them to be a giver or a taker? And don't be embarrassed if you said giver. But that doesn't make sense. If you want to be a giver, why do you want to marry a giver? Because no one wants to marry a taker. So we need to learn, we need to teach ourselves how to go from being a taker to becoming a giver, which needs a process. And just like everything else in the world needs a process. If you want to bake a cake, you could have the sugar, you could have the flour, you could have the eggs, you could have the chocolate chips, you could have the chocolate, you could have whatever else you need. And yet, you also need a process called baking. And that process necessitates heat and time. Right? Because time is an ingredient. So here's the thing. If I was born Ramini Irav, a taker, and I want to turn into a giver, I need a process that's going to help me go from being a taker to a giver. I'd like to suggest that this is the formula for that process. It's called turning yourself into a receiver first. Practice this first. Let's explore for just a moment. When the Torah talks about the Torah, we say Moshe Kibbel Torah Misinai. When we talk about the Yontiv of Torah, we call it Kabulas HaTorah, receiving the Torah. When we discuss Soidus HaTorah, the depths and the deepest parts of the Torah, that's right, Kabbalah. And the people who excel at that, we refer to them as Mekabulim, Mekablim, the ultimate receivers. Most of the world is trying to become a giver before they realize that in order to become a giver, you first have to be a receiver, because whatever you got by taking is not yours to give. It's only yours to give if you received it. And you only truly receive it when you ask for it. That's tefillah. When you earn it, that's why we have mitzvahs. And we appreciate it. And that's hodoyah. And that's why every single one of us has to say, even if you're listening to the Chazan Daven, and you yoitza all the other bruchas with the Chazan, but there's still one brucha you have to say yourself, no matter what. And that's moedim. Because you have to be able to show appreciation yourself. Because if you don't do that, then you're not a receiver for everything that Hashem is giving you. So as we go into Rosh Hashanah, yes, of course we want to be givers, and of course we don't want to be takers. Because that doesn't serve us to be takers. When we take, the world reacts back to us with fight, flight, or freeze. And if I'm giving my wife or my children something, the last thing in the world I would want is that they should fight with me about it, avoid me because of it, or surrender to me and do me a taiva and accept it from me. That doesn't serve me or them. And yet, if we can approach this new year, and every year, if we can approach each other, and definitely the Ribbono Shel Olam, as receivers, by being willing to do these steps, by being willing to check ourselves and ask ourselves, when I get frustrated, especially when I get frustrated about the things that I don't have yet, when I begin to get frustrated, all I need to do is ask myself, am I being a taker? Is that the source of my frustration? Or am I willing to be a receiver? Am I willing to ask for what I need, earn it, either because I did in the past or I am now, and appreciate, before I show appreciation, appreciate that I have it or that I got it. This is the difference moving forward between having a good life or chas v'shalom fakir. Because a good life is a life of giving. That's what good means. So when you vince somebody, moving forward, l'shuna toiva tikusai v'sichusai, la'alta l'chaim toiva. have in mind that you're vinching them and yourself a year of giving and not taking. Let us all be zoicha to a good year. A year of giving by first learning the art of receiving. You see, because this is really very, very creative. This is very artistic. It's a whole new skill set. See, because ask has rules. The rule of ask says that the answer can either be yes or it can be no. If you ask for something and the answer has to be yes, then that's not an ask, that's either a demand or a manipulate. And here's the thing. I find, as I'm sure you all know, that very often the people who cannot say no also cannot hear no. In order for us to be able to become receivers, one of the first things we need to do is we have to excel, we have to master the ask. And we're going to talk more about this in the future, but for now we're just touching on it. The art of ask, the art of asking, is the ability to hear a no just as much as you'd like to hear the yes. So part of asking is, it would make me so happy if you would, and if you say yes, I will experience joy and I will be appreciative and I will make sure that I either earned it in the past, I'm earning it now, or will earn it in the future. Very often just by appreciating it or just by asking for it. Right? And I will appreciate it. But if you say no, that's okay too. In order for us to also be able to sometimes say no. How many of us are frustrated time and time again when people ask us for things and we really want to say no, but we can't or don't know how? It's a skill. It's an art. And we need to practice it. We need to practice hearing no and saying no in order to be able to have better relationships between the mashpia and the mekabel, between the giver and the receiver. We need to eliminate takers from our lives once we've eliminated the taker within us. First, I need to stop being a taker so that I can be healthy enough to remove takers from my life. Either by, if they're my close people, I need to teach them how to be receivers, how to ask. And that's why, and by the way, we were raised like this. This is not a chiddush. This is nothing new. I'm just saying it in different words. This is please and this is thank you. And this is clean up your room. This is do your chores. Right? We were all taught as kids already. Say please, say thank you. What is please? Please says it's up to you. If you want to do it, please do it. If it pleases you to do it, and if not, not. That's what please means, if it pleases you. And thank you is just a sign of appreciation, that I appreciate that you actually gave me something. So we teach this to the little kinderlich. We need to teach it to ourselves. We need to practice becoming receivers in order to appreciate the goodness that we get from Hashem, and in order to emulate that goodness with those around us. So this way, we can receive from Hashem by asking, earning, and appreciating. Again, asking is tefillah, earning is asiyas mitzvahs, and appreciation is hodoyah. Constantly being appreciative. Kol neshama tahal kal, kol neshima and neshima tahal liskal, the Medrash tells us. Constantly and always be appreciative. Because at the end of the day, that's what a yid is. A yid is melushin yehida. Yuda is yehida, is hodoyah, right? So we're known as Bnei Yisrael. We're known as Bnei Avram Yitzchak Yankiv. We're known as Ivrim. There are many names, yet the name that stuck to us throughout history is Jews, which is Yuz, which is Yuda, which is Yehida, which is Hodoyah, appreciation. So that means that if you have a Yid who does everything right, but lives with a lack of appreciation, that would possibly be compared to a body without a neshama. It's lacking the most intricate and most central part of its identity. And yet sometimes you'll have a Yid that is full of appreciation, even though he may be lacking some of the actual rules and regulations. That would be like a body who's missing some body parts. chas v'sholom, but it's alive. It can still thrive, not just survive. So go ahead. Let's vince ourselves and each other. Aksila chasima toiva. Ashuna toiva masika. A year of giving, which includes lots of receiving from Hashem. Until next time, until next year. It's been a pleasure to serve you this year, and I look forward to doing so moving forward. If you have any questions on this content or any other content, if you have any questions about what the Mastermind is all about and how we do things in order to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, or if you just want to have a one-on-one schmooze in a formal or informal environment, reach out and let us know.